You know that feeling when you've given everything, your time, your energy, your heart, and yet life still knocks you down. You push forward, hoping things will get better, but somehow disappointment keeps finding you. You try to stay strong, but deep inside, you're tired. Tired of setbacks, tired of failure, tired of waiting for things to change. Maybe you've reached the point where you don't even have the strength to hope anymore. You've prayed, you've fought, and still, nothing. And now you're wondering, does God even see me? Does He hear me? Am I doing something wrong? I need you to listen to me right now because this moment is important. This is not the end of your story. This breaking point, it's where something greater begins. See, when life breaks you, it feels like everything is falling apart. Like you're losing pieces of yourself with every failure, every rejection, every disappointment. But what if I told you that this breaking is not to destroy you, it's to rebuild you? Because that's exactly what's happening. Think about it. Some of the strongest, most successful people you've ever heard of. They didn't get there because life was easy. No, they were crushed, rejected, told they weren't good enough. They hit rock bottom before they ever saw a breakthrough. But do you know what made the difference? They didn't let failure be the final word. And you can't either. Right now you might feel stuck. You might feel like you've lost too much time, too many opportunities, too much of yourself. But listen, what feels like a setback is actually a setup for something greater. I know it's hard to see it in the moment. When you're in the middle of it, all you can see is the pain, the exhaustion, the overwhelming feeling that you'll never get past this. But you will. Because here's the truth. Every time life breaks you, it's making room for something better. It's like when a building gets damaged beyond repair. Before anything new can be built, the old structure has to be torn down completely. And that process, it's messy, it's painful. But once the dust settles, what's left is a foundation strong enough to hold something greater than before. That's what's happening in your life. So maybe things didn't go as planned. Maybe you faced rejection after rejection. Maybe you've tried everything, only to feel like nothing is working. But what if that rejection was actually redirection? What if the closed doors were never meant for you in the first place? Think about it. If everything had worked out exactly how you wanted, you would have settled for less than what you were actually meant for. You would have been stuck in something that wasn't right for you, just because it was familiar. But now, you have a choice. You can let this season of breaking convince you that you'll never recover, or you can choose to believe that something greater is being built in its place. Because here's the truth. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. And I know right now it doesn't feel that way. It feels like everything you once relied on is gone. The confidence you used to have, shaken. The dreams you were so sure about, uncertain. The person you used to be, unrecognizable. But that doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're in the process of becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming the person you were always meant to be. So if you're tired, that's okay. If you feel like giving up, I get it. But don't mistake exhaustion for the end, because this is not the end. This is where you rise. This is where you start again, not from the beginning, but from experience. Everything you've been through, the failures, the disappointments, the heartbreak, none of it was wasted. It was shaping you, refining you, preparing you for something bigger than you ever imagined. And I know, right now, you might not see it. It might not make sense. But hold on, keep going, because one day you're going to look back at this very moment and realize it wasn't breaking you, it was making you. So take a deep breath, square your shoulders, and remind yourself, this is not where my story ends, because what's coming next, it's going to be greater than anything you've ever lost. And we're not stopping here, because there's something you need to hear next. You've been fighting, pushing, giving your all, and yet, it feels like life keeps handing you the same painful lesson over and over again. Every time you think you're getting closer to your breakthrough, another door slams shut, another disappointment, another failure, another moment that makes you question if it's even worth trying anymore. You've prayed for change, you've begged for clarity, you've worked harder than ever, believing that if you just kept going, things would finally shift. But instead, you're stuck in the same cycle, waiting, hoping, and wondering if God has forgotten you. But let me tell you something right now. God has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. And He is not done with you yet. I know it's hard to believe that when everything feels like it's falling apart, when you've tried everything and still come up short, when you've poured your heart into something, only to watch it crumble right in front of you. But what if I told you that what feels like rejection is actually redirection? What if this season of waiting isn't punishment, but preparation? Because here's the truth. Your pain has a purpose. I know that might not be what you want to hear right now. You just want relief. You just want something, anything, to go right. You just want to stop feeling like you're constantly fighting battles that no one else can see. But what if this struggle isn't here to break you, but to build you? See, most people think success happens overnight. That one day, things just magically fall into place. But that's not how it works. The strongest people, the ones who go on to do the greatest things, they are the ones who have walked through the fire and refused to let it destroy them. They are the ones who faced rejection and still got back up. The ones who were told no, but kept believing in a yes. The ones who had every reason to quit, but instead chose to trust that something greater was on the way. And right now, you have that same choice. You can let this season convince you that you'll never make it, that your dreams are too far gone, that you're not good enough, not strong enough, not capable enough. Or you can choose to believe that everything you are going through is shaping you for what's next, that every setback is teaching you something, that every delay is building the patience and resilience you're going to need for the future you've been praying for. Because here's the thing, God doesn't waste pain. That struggle you're facing, it's not for nothing. That disappointment, it's not the end. That season of feeling stuck, lost, unsure of what's next, it's not a sign to give up. It's a sign that God is still working. Because if He was done with you, you wouldn't still be here. The fact that you're still breathing, still standing, still holding on, even when you feel like you have nothing left, that means something. That means there is still more ahead of you. You might not see it right now, but this season is doing something inside of you that success never could. It's strengthening you. It's teaching you how to keep going even when you don't feel like it. It's forcing you to dig deeper, to find out who you really are when everything is stripped away. Because when the breakthrough comes, and trust me, it will, you're going to need the strength that this season is building in you right now. I know waiting is hard. I know failing over and over again is exhausting. I know it's frustrating to feel like you're putting in all this effort and not seeing results. But you are not forgotten. You are not alone. And most importantly, this is not where your story ends. One day, you're going to look back at this very moment and realize that everything you went through was leading you somewhere greater, that the doors that closed were actually protecting you from things that weren't meant for you, that the delays were actually giving you time to grow into the person you needed to be to handle what's coming next. But you have to keep going, because God isn't done writing your story yet. And I promise you, when you finally step into what He has been preparing for you, you'll understand why you had to go through this season. You'll see why it didn't happen when you wanted it to. You'll realize that all along, you weren't being forgotten. You were being prepared. So don't quit now, because what's ahead, it's going to be worth every single moment of waiting. And we're not stopping here, because there's something even more important you need to hear next. You might feel like life has pushed you too far this time, like you've hit the lowest point and there's no way back up. The weight of everything you've been through has drained you, physically, emotionally, spiritually. You've tried, you've fought, and yet things still haven't changed. I get it. There's only so much disappointment one person can take before the thought creeps in. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'll never get past this. But hear me, this is not how your story ends. I know the struggle feels endless. The pain feels permanent. The losses seem too great. But your lowest point is not the end of the road. It's the turning point. Because no matter how deep the pit you've fallen into, no matter how far you think you've gone, God can lift you up. And when He does, He won't just bring you back to where you were. He will take you higher than you ever imagined. Let's be real. Sometimes life knocks you down so hard that getting back up feels impossible. You don't just feel tired. You feel empty, like you've lost the fight in you. Maybe you had a dream and it crumbled. Maybe you lost something, an opportunity, a relationship, a future you thought was certain. And now, all that's left is regret, exhaustion, and the overwhelming question, what now? That's the hardest part, isn't it? The uncertainty, not knowing how to fix things, not knowing if things will ever get better, not knowing if it's even worth trying again. And when you don't have answers, it's easy to believe the lie that says, this is just how things are. This is just who you are now. But that's not the truth. The truth is, you are not stuck here. This is not your forever. And just because you don't see a way out right now, doesn't mean there isn't one. I know you don't feel strong right now. You feel drained, defeated, barely holding on. But here's something most people don't realize. Strength isn't proven when things are easy. It's built when everything is falling apart, and you choose to keep going anyway. Look at everything you've already survived. Look at the storms you thought would break you but didn't. You've made it through things that, at the time, you didn't think you could handle. And yet, you're still here. That means you're stronger than you think. It means there's more inside of you than you realize. And it means that no matter how hopeless things seem right now, this is not where your story ends. Have you ever read a book where the main character goes through so much struggle that you start wondering if they'll ever get a happy ending? But then, you turn the page, and suddenly, things start shifting. What looked like a disaster was actually setting them up for something greater. The battles they fought weren't pointless. They were preparing them for something bigger than they ever imagined. And maybe that's exactly where you are right now. Maybe you're in the middle of the story. Maybe the chapter you're living in is the hardest one yet. But the good news? This is not the last chapter. There are still pages left to turn. And if you stop now, if you give up in the middle of the struggle, you'll never get to see how things turn around. You'll never get to see how the pieces come together. You'll never get to see the victory that was waiting for you just ahead. But if you keep going, if you refuse to let this moment define your future, you will see something incredible unfold. Because God doesn't leave stories unfinished. Right now, you might be looking at your life and thinking, I've lost too much. I've messed up too many times. I don't see how things could ever be good again. But let me tell you something. Your past does not define your future. Maybe you failed, but failure isn't final. Maybe you've been hurt, but your pain does not define you. Maybe you feel lost. But just because you don't know the way forward doesn't mean there isn't one. Your best days are not behind you. The things you've been through, the struggles, the setbacks, the moments that made you question everything, they are not the end of your story. They are the foundation for something greater. And I know, it's hard to believe that when you're in the middle of it, when all you see is struggle, when all you feel is exhaustion. But hold on, because God is lifting you up. He is working behind the scenes in ways you can't see yet. He is aligning things, moving things, preparing things. And when the time is right, everything will make sense. But you have to keep going. This part is important, so listen carefully. The only way you don't make it through this season is if you give up. That's it. It's not your failures that will stop you. It's not your pain that will keep you stuck. It's not the delays or disappointments that will hold you back. The only thing that can stop you from seeing the other side of this is if you decide to quit. But you're not going to quit, because you are stronger than you think, because your story is still being written, because what's ahead is greater than what's behind. So don't stop here, because one day you'll look back at this moment and realize this was the turning point. And we're not done yet, because there's still more you need to hear. You've been through storms that no one else knows about. You've carried burdens so heavy that even smiling feels like an effort some days. You've faced disappointments that made you question if things would ever change. But despite everything, you're still here. And that means something. It means that no matter how much life has tried to break you, you are unshaken. It means that even in your weakest moments, there's a fire inside of you that refuses to go out. It means that even when you wanted to quit, something in you held on. And that is proof that your story is not over. You are not your failures. You are not your past. You are not the mistakes, the missed opportunities, or the closed doors. You are more than what you've been through, and you are stronger than you realize. See, life has a way of convincing us that if things don't happen on our timeline, they're never going to happen. But let me tell you something. Delay is not denial. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it never will. Maybe what you're waiting for isn't here yet because you're still becoming the person who's ready for it. Maybe the doors that closed were keeping you from settling for something less than what you were meant for. Maybe, just maybe, this waiting season isn't wasted. Maybe it's shaping you, preparing you, growing you in ways you don't even realize yet. And I know it's hard to trust the process when all you feel is the pain of the moment. But if you could see the bigger picture, if you could see what's ahead, you wouldn't even question it. Because one day, you're going to look back at this season and realize every delay, every setback, every no was leading you to the right yes. So keep going, even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't see progress, even when everything in you wants to stop. Because this is not the end of your story. Your best days are not behind you. They are ahead. The strength you've built in this season will carry you into the next. The lessons you've learned through pain will shape your future victories. The things you thought were breaking you were actually making you unshakable. And when the time is right, everything will make sense. So don't give up. Don't let this moment convince you that your future isn't bright. Don't let the enemy lie to you and make you believe that what you've been through is all there is. Because there is more for you. Greater things are coming. The dreams that seem far away will come to pass. The things you've prayed for will find you. The opportunities you thought you lost will be replaced by better ones. Stay faithful. Stay strong. Stay ready. Because when your breakthrough comes, you'll be glad you didn't quit. And until that day, remember this. You are loved. You are chosen. You are meant for more. Thank you for listening. May you find the strength to keep moving forward, the faith to trust what's ahead, and the courage to never give up. Amen.